a privilege this morning to have Hal Weatherman with us. And of course, I've been mentioning this for some time, that he is in a runoff election, and that will be on May the 14th. And we're glad to have him. And he is candidate for lieutenant governor here in the state of North Carolina. Now, Drake said to him a while ago, he said, "I'm a state worker." He said, "I want you to make it good for us." Amen. But I appreciate that. I appreciate Hal. His mother and dad are great people, special people to us, and we love and appreciate them. But I want to introduce you. Hal, come on up and just make yourself at home now. You're not on a time limit and schedule. I can adjust my sermon as needed. But let me say just a few things about him. Of course, his mom's Harold and Tony. He's a husband and father of 3. He has a lot of experience in government, 25 years experience in federal and state governments. And he was the first chief of staff for Congresswoman Sue Myrick, and then chief of staff for former Lieutenant Governor Dan Forrest. And let me remind you now, you voted probably on May 5th, and there were 11 candidates statewide for lieutenant governor. And to just win it outright in the primary, you had to get 30 plus 1 votes. And with 11 candidates, that was not possible, but Hal came fairly close. He was the top vote getter in the state. And because there were others that could contest it, they have. And so it's critical to vote. And I would not tell you who to vote for. I'm not an idiot. I would not do that. But I'm going to support this man because of what he believes, and I thought it'd be good for you to hear from him. And Hal, it is good to have you with us today, and just help yourself, ever how long or short you want to be.
Thank you, Pastor.
Yes, sir. God bless you.
So I am Hal Weatherman, a Republican candidate for lieutenant governor. I'm not going to give you a speech. How's that? Pastor said he thought it'd be good if I gave my testimony, and then also maybe shared a little bit about what's driving me to do this, which is really one and the same. I came to know the Lord at an early age. I was 5.5 years old. And talking about full circle of life, I actually attended Northside Baptist Church in Charlotte, which if you know anything about Charlotte, that back in the 70s, that's where the legendary Fire and Brimstone Independent Baptist Jack Hudson was the pastor, who's related in some distant way to your pastor. And he preached about hell one Sunday. Just straight up, just preached it, and scared me to death. And I went home and told my dad, that really scared me. And my father, who's in the back there, took me down into the family library and went through the Romans Road, opened up the Bible, got me on my knees, and I accepted Christ. And I had the honor to extend that exact same privilege to all 3 of my children in their life early in their age. And so I'm proud of that. What's driving me to do this is really one and the same. 15, 16 months ago, my wife and I embarked on this journey, and it is a journey when you travel the state, to run for this office, to be your next lieutenant governor. But we felt very convicted and called to do it a certain way. And so in a day and age of 30-second sound bites, most of them negative, most of them attacking the other guy, which I reject, by the way. I have to give an account one day. And God did not put me on this earth to rip people to shreds, nor did he put you on this earth for that purpose. And so we felt very called that we were going to run, but we're going to run win, lose, or draw a certain way. And so this is kind of interesting. We were the top fundraiser in our race, meaning we raised the most money of the 11-man field. Despite that, and on purpose, we did not put one dime, not one dime into TV, not one dime into radio, not one dime into direct mail. We fueled our travel around the state because we felt convicted to, in the day and age of 30-second sound bites, try to relate to people one-on-one, which is near impossible to do in a state of 11 million people. But we have been on the road, with no exaggeration, nonstop now for 16 straight months. For 16 straight months. I have not had a weekend off in 16 months. That's not an exaggeration. Meeting with the greatest asset that our state has to offer, which is actually you. And the Lord has rewarded us. In an 11-man field, we garnered 181,000 votes on election night. We won 62 of the 100 counties, despite being outspent on TV, 1.5 million to nothing. Right? That's the power of grassroots. I would actually say that's the power of God. But the second place guy did challenge us to a runoff, and a lot of my supporters got upset about that and said, look, we defeated him by 34,000 votes. We defeated him in 80 of the 100 counties. And I totally reject that criticism. I'm like, we don't do coronations in this state, and I actually believe the Bible to be true. The Bible says as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. That is actually my view of what a primary is. It is to sharpen the candidate. And so if the good Lord wants me to spend 2 more months traveling the state, honing my message, meeting with the people, then I consider it great joy. And so that primary election is May 14th. And you can early vote right now, and I do ask for your support. Turnout will be abysmal. Let me tell you what's really, really driving me to do this. 2 things. I can sum up my campaign in 1 word, 2 words, self-sufficiency, right? Self-sufficiency. When you're called to do something, God will provide the provision. I've learned that. He will also provide the message, as long as you're true to it. And so we preach the same message every day. I preach a message every day in every room that I'm in about call your people to be self-sufficient in a dangerous world that's coming, and call your state to be self-sufficient. So people say, what do I mean by that? See, I have certain fundamental beliefs. I believe that God put man on this earth to work. And when I say man, I always mean it in the biblical context, mankind, man and woman. God put you on this earth to work. When a man works, that is where his dignity comes from. When a man works, that is where his self-identity comes from. When a man works, that is where he learns self-sufficiency. And I want to be real clear about the words that I use. Self-sufficiency is an internal peace that God will put on a man or a woman when they are finally living their life in such a way that they are not dependent on any one thing or any one person other than God himself. And when you're in that zone, God will give you a peace, and that is him saying, you know what, you are now living your life in such a way that I can mold you and I can use you in my service. And I have a burning desire for our people in this state to be self-sufficient, because I have lived, I'll be honest with you, I have lived without that peace. I know exactly what that feels like, right? But I currently live with that peace, and I know the difference. And I have a burning desire for our people to know that peace. And think about this, when we work, we automatically train the next generation, our children, of what is expected of them in adulthood. By the way, shame on our federal government for the last 4 years to pay man not to work. Shame on our federal government to pay man in such a way that it denies him his dignity, his self-respect, the self-sufficiency and the peace that comes with it, and the proper way to train his children, because that's what our government has been doing. I have been called to deliver a message. And the message is, call your people to be self-sufficient. And I have a personal belief that we will never do that in this society until we regain what we have lost. And what we have lost is the basic concept of the dignity of work itself. We have lost that in our society, and we need to get it back. They've already started polling the latest generation, Generation Alpha, Generation Z, Generation Alpha, the new generations, right? They've already started polling these kids. This is interesting. They are polling as the most pro-life generations that any of us have ever seen in our life. Can you imagine that? In today's culture, they are entering into our culture pro-life. They understand that life is sacred, that it's special, that it needs to be protected. That's amazing, right? But at the same time, they are polling as the most suicide-prone, anxious, stressed-out generations we've ever seen. Isn't that something? You know what that means? That means they come into life with hope, and then they encounter us, and they lose all hope. Lieutenant Governor serves on the State Board of Education. Lieutenant Governor serves on the State Board of Community Colleges. If I have the honor to be your Lieutenant Governor from those 2 pedestals, I'm going to do absolutely everything in my power to fundamentally remove the stigma that our society has put on men and women who work with their hands, that work in the trades. I want to drive people into understanding the basic concept of the dignity of work itself. Why? Because future generations are losing hope. Where do you spend most of your time during your entire life? At work. And we've removed the dignity. We as a society have to stop sending generation after generation after generation of kids into a 4-year university system where they're coming out with degrees in Egyptian poetry, $100,000 in debt, and can't find a job. And then we wonder why they're losing all hope, right? All the while they could go make $100,000, build a business, sell the business for 7+ figures if they're smart, right? If they go be a plumber or HVAC. Yet our society is saying, no, not my kid. Am I making any sense? I want to call our people to be self-sufficient, but to do that, we have to restore the basic concept of the dignity of work. Our state needs to be self-sufficient. And I'll end on this. Our state needs to be self-sufficient. And I'm an optimist. If you actually know me and how I grew up, I'm very optimistic, I'm very outgoing. I'm going to be honest with you. I have a very dark calling on my heart. It's very dark. And that's why my wife and I felt so strongly we were supposed to do this at our time. I think that there are dangerous, amazingly dangerous and precarious days ahead for our country. And I think it's imminent. I really do. I want to tell you how the world as I see it. I can sum it up in just a minute. I look around and I see trains around our country derailing in strategic locations, carrying strategic materials that, in effect, it weaponizes the train when it goes off the rails. You're aware of this, right? I could equally say I'm starting to see barges mysteriously start hitting our critical infrastructure in the rivers and in the waters, shutting down our supply chains. Last year, we had a rolling blackout in the great state of North Carolina. Our state has never seen a rolling blackout in anybody's history. We saw one, and the answer we got from the officials was, expect to see more in the future. When did that happen? I don't know if you're aware of this, but in the center part of your state, we have electrical substations that are being attacked. The electrical substations were attacked, and I talked to the sheriff down there afterwards, and he said, it's interesting. They're attacking the parts that we don't have replacement parts for, shutting down their grid, right? I see China buying our farmland. I see China buying our sovereign soil, and I'm smart enough, and you're smart enough to know that if China controls our food, China controls us. And then I look around and I see what's happening on our southern border, complete collapse of our southern U.S. border, and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of military-age, able-bodied men are streaming across our border, many from countries that openly want to commit terrorism against the United States. And we are kidding ourselves as a people if we don't think the next governor and lieutenant governor of this state will not have instances, they'll call it homegrown jihadi-based terrorism. It's not homegrown at all. It was allowed to walk across our border. And those people are coming in now. And they're absolutely going to be on our soil. And the next governor of this state and lieutenant governor of this state will absolutely have to deal with jihadi-based terrorism on our land. And think about the day China flew that spy balloon over the great state of North Carolina. Think about that. Y'all know on the day it flew over North Carolina, it flew over every one of our military installations. It flew over every one of our nuclear power plants. It flew over all of our critical resources. And we as a people had to sit by impotently and do nothing. That is when you know your state is not prepared for the day of reckoning that is coming on this country. I don't know what it will be. I don't know if it will be a financial meltdown of epic proportions. I don't know if it will be COVID on steroids. Think of the civil liberties we as a people gave up for something that had a 98.8% survival rate for most people that it touched. Yet they shut down our churches, right? What's going to happen if something comes back and it kills 1 out of every 10 people it encounters? Could you imagine the civil liberties that you're going to give up in this society? I can, because I saw what we gave up for COVID. By the way, side note, the federal government never gives back what it takes. And I promise you this, it will absolutely never return what you willfully surrender into it. Our civil liberties are there to protect us during a time of crisis. I hope I'm making sense. I hope I'm making sense. I want to call our people in our state to be self-sufficient. I want to call our people to be self-sufficient and our state to be self-sufficient. And I think, with all my heart, I think God is raising up right now. He is raising up a new breed of politician all over this country. He really is. I can name them: South Dakota, Mississippi, and Iowa, the governor in Florida. If you actually listen to what these men and women are saying in their own words, they're saying the same thing. Prepare your people. Prepare your people to stand alone in a dangerous world. Salvation of this country, other than Jesus, the salvation of this country is not going to come from Washington, D.C. It's actually going to come from godly, limited government, constitutional, Christian, conservative governors and lieutenant governors preparing their states to push back. Listen, it pains me to say this. I'm a limited government conservative, which means I believe in the government at all levels, because I think God ordains it. Because if for no other reason, he wants stability and order and discipline, right? He wants those things. Why? If for no other reason, so that the gospel of Jesus Christ can be openly preached in our society. That's what he desires. But it pains me to say this, that the number one perpetrator in today's world, the propagator, the perpetrator, the pusher of all the ideologies that are dividing us as a people are actually our federal government. All these 3-letter acronyms, right? SEL, DEI, CRT. You know what I'm talking about? These are just the DNA of the so-called woke agenda, broken into its component parts and then tied to federal funds. Tied to federal funds. Listen, we as a people have to be self-sufficient as a state so we can start severing the ties that bind us, so that we can break free from those things that are causing great division in our country right now. Think about the drug dealers. Horrible analogy, but truth. We live in a horrible world sometimes. Think of the drug dealers. Watch the drug dealer on the playground. First round's always for free. Right? Because once a child's addicted to that drug dealer can lace it with whatever he wants. And you're going to take it with a smile on your face because you're addicted to it. That is our state today. Our state is addicted to federal funds, not realizing that the liberal left has hijacked virtually every funding source there is, and now has laced it with these three-letter acronyms, so that when you take the money, you're putting cancer, an ideological cancer, into your state, and it metastasizes and it spreads throughout the whole system. That is exactly where we are. You know who can break free from that? A self-sufficient state. I'm Hal Weatherman. I am a candidate for lieutenant governor. This is the same message I preach everywhere I go. I win whether I win or not, because I have been obedient to the call that's been put on my heart to go all over this state and preach this message. By the way, we were the only candidate that went to all 100 counties. We went to 35 counties 5 times or more. We went to 10 counties 10 times or more. So we are on the road continuously. We consider it great joy. I ask for your support. May 14th is the runoff. You can early vote today. And Pastor, thank you for having me today.